A complex number, we represent complex numbers with a capital C with a little bar. Complex number is a number written in the form a plus bi, where a is the real part and bi is the imaginary part. This is the form of a complex number. So some examples is 8 plus 2i, 3 minus 7i, negative 10 minus I. Can you guys give me an example? Good. Can someone give me another example? Perfect. These are examples of complex numbers. Okay, so now we're going to perform some operations with these complex numbers. First, let's do addition. So when we add or subtract complex numbers, you're going to add the real parts together. So negative 11 plus 9 is negative 2. Then we will combine the imaginary parts. 3i and 2i is 5i. So this is your answer. Let's try another problem. 4 plus 7 is 11. Now let's do the imaginary parts. I minus 5i is negative 4i. That's your answer. Now let's do subtraction. This is where a lot of people tend to make mistakes. Whenever you have a subtraction, you have to subtract the 2 and you also subtract 6i. That subtraction symbol needs to go to both. The beginning can just come down. So this is what we have. Okay, now 7 minus 2 is 5. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. So this will be negative 8i. And that's your answer. Let's try another problem with subtraction. Remember, this subtraction sign goes to the 14. So we're going to subtract 14. And we have to subtract the minus I. What do two negatives make? So now this is a plus I. Everything else can just come down. Okay, so let's combine the real numbers. Negative 14 plus 5 is negative 9. Six I plus another I is what? 7i, but then we're going to subtract 3i. 4i. There we go, 4. So this will be 4i. That is your answer. Okay, so now we're going to multiply. 2i times 8 is 16i. Minus 2i times 3i. What's 2 times 3? What is I times I? I squared. Now, what you need to recall from yesterday's lesson, do you guys remember what I squared is? Good, negative 1. Please write this down. I squared is negative 1. That means instead of writing an I squared, I'm going to put a negative 1 there. Because I squared is negative 1. Now let's see what this is equal to. I have 16i, and what is negative 6 and a negative 1? Plus 1. Yep, positive 6. That's your answer, but I'm going to put it in the correct format, because remember we said a complex number is written as a plus bi, so I'm going to put the 6 in the front, and the complex part in the back, the imaginary part in the back. Okay, let's try another problem. This 2 means you're going to write this twice. Now we're going to multiply. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times negative 2i is negative 12i. Now let's do the next one. Negative 2i times 6 is negative 12i. What is negative 2 times negative 2? Positive 4. And what is I times I? I squared. So let's start simplifying this. What's negative 12i minus 12i? Good. Let's bring down the rest. Guys, didn't we just say I squared is negative 1? So guys, this is what I'm going to write. Plus 4, instead of an I squared, I'm going to put a negative 1 there. Now let's see what I get. 36 minus 24i. 4 and a negative 1 is negative 4. 36 minus 4 is 32. So this is your answer. For this one, 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times negative I is negative 7i. Now let's do the I times 4 is 4i. I times negative I is negative I squared. Let's combine this middle. That will be negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3i minus I squared. Now we're going to use that rule. I squared is negative 1. So guys, look, this is where everyone made a mistake. Not everyone, just some of you guys. I squared, we're not doing anything with this minus sign. I'm changing I squared to a negative 1. This remained the same, but I squared is turning to a negative 1. Okay, so now I have 2 negatives. This becomes 28 minus 3i plus 1. So your answer, 28 plus 1, you should have 29 minus 3i. So if you got that, pat yourself on the back. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to complex conjugates. I want everyone just to read these notes real quick. Read those top 2 lines. Read those 2 sentences. Whenever you multiply 2 complex conjugates, your answer is always going to be a real number. So let's do an example. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times negative I is negative 8i. I times 8 is plus 8i. I times negative I is negative I squared. Those cancel. Do you guys see that? Those canceled out. So now I have 64 minus, do you guys remember what I can substitute I squared with? Negative 1. I can change that to a negative 1. This can be a negative 1. So this is 65. You're always going to get a real number when you multiply 2 complex conjugates. So let's move on to solving. Let's do this problem together. So guys, first, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. The square root cancels out with this squared. So I'm left with x plus 2 equals the square root of negative 81. Do you guys know what the square root of 81 is? Positive or negative 9. And guys, if I have a negative under here, what else would I have? An I. So that's what that is. I'll bring this side down. Now, I'm not done solving for x. What do I do to solve for x? Subtract 2. The rules are still the same, guys. So my answer is, don't copy this down, just look. This is what you probably wrote, right? That's what I had. But remember, the format of a complex number is a plus bi. So I'm going to put this part on the back. So I'm going to say x is equal to -2 plus or minus 9i. That's how I'm going to write my answer. Okay, this next example, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. Those 4's cancel. I am left with 3 times x plus 3 squared equals -96 times 4 is -384. Okay, now I'm going to divide both sides by 3. I'll get x plus 3 squared equals -128. What do I do now? Yep, we're going to square root both sides. Square root, and those square roots and the squared will cancel, and square root this side. So my answer is x plus 3 equals negative square root, or -128, the square root of that. So let's simplify this. Two numbers that multiply to 128. Okay, y'all did 64 and 2. And what two numbers multiply to 64? 8 and 8. Perfect. I'm going to stop there because I already have a pair. 8 times 8 times 2. The smallest numbers will go under the square root symbol. So here's a pair. Cross it out. It goes outside. So guys, I get 8 square root of 2 when I simplified this. What am I missing? Yes, I'm missing a plus or minus, and I need the I. Why do I need the I? Yes, because I had a negative here. So my answer will have an I. So let me write what I have. I have x plus 3 equals plus or minus 8i square root of 2. Now, I'm almost done solving. What do I need to do? Subtract 3 from both sides. Now, you can stop here, but I'm going to write it in the correct format, where -3 comes first, and your imaginary part comes second. And that's your answer. Do you guys understand that the plus and minus mean two different answers? Okay, if I were to split this up, I'm just making sure y'all understand what this is saying. This is saying your answer is x equals a -3 plus 8i square root of 2. That's one of your answers. Your other answer is -3 minus 8i square root of 2. But instead of writing all of this, mathematicians get lazy and they just put plus or minus. Okay?